You may begin. Sorry.
Thanks, Mark. Good evening. At this time, I would like to open our 2018-2019 calendar hearing. Missouri state statute requires local school districts to hold a hearing should the school calendar be designed with a start date earlier than 10 days prior to the first Monday in September. The proposed 2018-19 school calendar that will be presented to the board this evening for their approval is planned with a start date of August 9th, 25 days before the first Monday in September. At this time, I will open the floor for any patron who would like to comment on the proposed August 9th, 2018 start date for the 18-19 school year. Please come to the podium if you would like to comment on the start date. Thank you. That concludes our calendar hearing for the 18-19 proposed school year calendar.
Thank you, Lisa. What is the start date? With it being 7 o'clock and a quorum present, I call the Francis School District Board of Education meeting to order. And with us tonight is the Francis Central Cheerleaders, and they're going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Board will entertain a motion to approve the agenda submitted.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Haynes, second by Mr. Summer. Any discussion? Hearing none by roll call.
Ms. Ferguson?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Recognitions.
Thank you, Mr. LaFada. First up, to introduce our student board rep, Francis Howell Union Principal Rob Goff.
Mr. LaFada and board members, it's my honor to introduce Marquez Rice as Francis Howell Union's board representative this evening. Marquez, when I sent out the email to my staff asking who would be the best representative for us on the board, it was unanimous that Marquez was the student. He's a hardworking student. He plans on going to ranking in the fall and studying information technologies, and then after that going to Maryville to get a business degree where he can open his own business. So it's my honor to have Marquez as our representative this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. You gotta get your picture taken first.
I'm going this way. Should we hold our smiles?
While we're stalling, do you want something for the consent agenda to vote separately?
Okay.
And I'll get something on the 7,500 to vote separately.
So, okay, so what is your?
Item 1 on the
Francis Howell is proud to announce that teachers Brittany Holscher and Shelley Parks have both received the 2016 Emerson Excellence in Teaching Award. These two great teachers embody the culture of learning in Francis Howell as they work to educate and inspire our students. From Francis Howell High School, Brittany Holscher is known for her motivational skills. Her positive relationships with students motivates them to learn, and although only in her 4th year of teaching at Francis Howell High School, Brittany is already a leader among her peers. She's active in writing curriculum for several different courses and serving as a PLC leader and always motivating her team members to collaborate and try new instructional strategies. Shelley Parks has been with Francis Howell North for nearly a decade and serves as the Communication Arts Department Chair. She's a nationally board certified teacher who focuses on the achievement of both students and her department. A proponent of cooperative learning, she puts extra value on students working together to solve problems and learn content that might seem challenging. Emerson, headquartered here in St. Louis, has sponsored a program that recognizes teachers for their excellence since 1989, the only award of its kind in Missouri. Ladies and gentlemen, Brittany Holscher and Shelley Parks.
Keep going more and more. Great job, ladies.
Practice makes perfect, as the saying goes, and Peter Lucido of Francis Howell North High School is proof of that adage. His dedication to diving and his team have helped him win the state diving championship as well as Missouri Diver of the Year honors. Peter was undefeated in dual meet competition during his 4-year career. He qualified for the state diving competition and earned all state honors all 4 years as well. Peter finished 4th, 3rd, and 3rd in his first 3 years, but that wasn't good enough. Those finishes only motivated Peter to continue improving. He practices 4 to 5 hours a day year-round, and all that hard work has paid off, and not just in high school. Next year, Peter will attend the University of Missouri, where he's received a scholarship to dive for the Missouri swim program. Congratulations to Peter and his family. The Francis Howell Central High School varsity cheerleading squad, and you would hardly know that they were in the room, except for the pledge, made history this year. Ladies and gentlemen, you might as well start on your way up now. By the time I get done, you'll all finally be up here. As they won the 2016 Missouri Cheerleading Coaches Association State Championship. This was the first championship in program history after finishing in the Final Four in 2 previous seasons. Head coach and cheerleading alum Michelle Berryman said she's thrilled about the accomplishments and raved about the squad's attitude. They continually had their eye on the prize and didn't let anything get in the way. They cheered on their teammates and made sure that they were always giving 110% at practices and games. I couldn't ask for a better group of athletes. Activities Director Scott Harris said he's especially proud of the academic and civic achievements of the team. This group excelled in the classroom with a GPA of over 3.6, as well as taking part in community service projects where they gave time and resources to local charities. Ladies and gentlemen, the state cheer champs. That's the way to do it. Seniors in front.
Oh, look, I know how to do it. They can do it. Where you going, Mary?
We're gonna Photoshop us out anyway. With all the camera. Doesn't matter.
Great job, ladies.
Congratulations.
State champs. Ladies, ladies, can you guys do a pyramid up here, and I'm going to be on top? You ready?
Thank you, Mr. Levada.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there any items that be, I'm sorry, we have patron comments first, sorry about that. Good evening, we got a lot of patron comments tonight, so please, during patron comments, patrons are invited to address the Board of Education. Please come to the podium so everyone can hear you. It's right over there. Please adhere to the 3-minute time limit. The board is interested in hearing public concerns and opinions, but we do not answer patron questions during the meeting. Questions and concerns will be addressed by the appropriate staff members, by Dr. Hendricks Harris and the cabinet. Please remember that comments about individual students and staff are not allowed due to confidentiality. These concerns need to be brought to the administrator's attention and may be brought to the board in closed session. First patron comment tonight is David, I'm going to say Holland. David Holland? Okay. You write really small. And your 3 minutes begins when you get over there, so you can take your time getting there.
Good evening. I'll keep it really, really short. I'm here with a group of people who are concerned about something that we had noticed recently. We've been in communication with a few people in the district concerning the curriculum surrounding sex ed and how that's being handled. This is clearly not 3 minutes, so I'm not going to bother pointing these things out. I would like to open up a dialogue, though, with more of the staff from the district as well as some of the surrounding districts. We, if I understand correctly, are utilizing a division of a company called Thrive St. Louis for a 4-day program as compared to a standardized health class to teach the fundamentals that would be necessary or best suited to help students understand the details of sexuality. And there's a lot that's in there. So if I will, I'll continue to look into things, and I'd like to speak with people when there's more time available. And I believe Jane is another person that came with me who would like to say something. I think she has a comment card in as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you'd like to drop off your information that you're going to prepare tonight, they can make copies and the board can look at it. Just see one of the staff members up here. We have it. Next person on the list is Patrick Lane and Mary Lang.
Good evening. I am Patrick Lane, and this is Mary Lang. We are co-chairs for the Prop Howell Committee. At this time, we would like to update the board and the community as to our concerns about the November 8th election. The following concerns have been noted since the outcome of the election. We have found that patrons in the Wentzville, Fort Zumwalt, and St. Charles School District voted on Prop Howell. We've also found that patrons in our own district were not given ballots with Prop Howell listed. At this time, we've compiled a list of 21 people that have been franchised or disenfranchised from the Prop Howell levy. These residents represent 12 precincts. 10,000 people voted in those precincts. 23,000 people voted total. Under the Sunshine Law, Mary and I have sent our concerns and requested specific information from the Director of Elections office. The information was incomplete. We have since consulted with a lawyer and have made a second request for more information. Our district has spent $66,000 on an election that we feel was inadequate. We will continue to pursue our concerns with the Director of Elections. We ask the community to please send us any information or concerns you have in regards to the election on November the 8th. Our goal is to continue educational excellence in the Francis Howell School District. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Next patron is John Hunt.
Thank you. My name's John Hunt, and I'm the president of the Francis Howell Central Football Boosters Club. And I realize that the district has a lot of tough decisions to make moving forward here based on the vote and what I've heard in the news. I'm here to talk about a couple of things in relation to how important both academics and clubs are. And clubs, in this sense of the term, means sports teams and extracurricular. As we just saw from the cheer team that was here tonight, couldn't have been scripted better for this presentation, because while we saw the cheer team come up here, we also heard the cheer team's GPA was 3.6. So I really want the board and the voting members to think about, as we move forward with our decisions and where cuts need to be made, what really helps drive many of our children in school. So one of our 4 children started high school one year. He's out now. And he came home and he could not have been more excited about all the different clubs. And mind you, he did not bring up any of his classes. All he did was brought up all the clubs. And he joined too many of them and he backed off, and then he did the right thing. And that's good. But these cheerleaders are strict proof how important that engagement in things outside of the classroom but are part of the school really helps drive their participation in the community, their participation in the classroom, and their want to achieve in life. Our other children that actually participated in extracurricular sports went and got their first job just because of that. They wrote a simple cover letter, stated they made it to district and they helped the team, they know how to be a teammate, and that's what got them the job. They didn't get that part-time job because they had good grades in school. Might have helped, but that's not why they got their job. So I want to move on quickly here. We need to definitely provide additional focus for our children other than just the classroom. And I'm saying this because the cost of these programs can be extensive, and I'm talking about football, and I'm talking about baseball, and any sport. Cheerleading's expensive, very expensive. So we have to make sure a structure remains in place for the school to support the capability and the safety of these programs, but we also want to make sure that a structure remains in place that supporting clubs, booster clubs for all of these programs, band's a big one. We work right next to the band on Friday nights every fall. How important the band is and how many kids are out there in the band being part of a structured...
Thank you, your time is up.
Okay, community. So by raising our monies, we actually give our team food, transportation, and equipment that they wouldn't otherwise get. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Next patron is Mark Lesh. Leash? Lesh, okay.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, residents and faculty, My name is Mark Losh, and I am here tonight to speak on behalf of the student participants and the families that are involved in our district marching band programs. Our marching bands perform at the halftime shows of football games, at pep rallies, and in many competitions throughout the state and around the country. This past fall season, there were over 300 student participants between our 3 high school marching bands. Our band programs are all inclusive. We have freshmen through seniors, male and female students, and even special needs students performing and competing together. The band programs are an excellent way of keeping our students engaged in our school district. Many of our students started learning the music for the fall programs at the end of May. The students attending marching band camps in July, after school practices started with the beginning of school year and ran through the end of October, with some continuing on until the last home football playoff game. Many of our fall marching band students continue on into winter drumline and winter guard programs. The winter programs run November through April. This means that some of our students are engaged in a school activity from the end of May through April of the following year. I do not know of any other activity that keeps the students engaged for that much of the school year. The complexity of the music and the drill demands that the students miss a minimum number of practices. This requires the students to maintain excellent attendance rates. The dedication of these students is unrivaled by any other organization. Sometimes we're loading band trailers at 5 o'clock in the morning for a competition on Saturday and don't get home until after midnight. Also, the parents are all there. There are no extra players or subs for the band. Therefore, the students must maintain their GPA, because if you've got holes missing on the field, that's something that the judges will notice. It's unfortunate that the district is now put in a position of having to make more budget reduction decisions. We know that there's a push in the community to minimize or eliminate expenditures on the activity programs and make them pay to play. Many people say, why should I pay for your student to go participate in any activity? And I can tell those people in the community that the fall band dues for Howell High were $550 per student last year, and that some of the winter programs this year will run over $900. But I think the better answer to that question must be to make a better student, to make a more rounded individual, to make a younger person know that it takes hard work, teamwork, dedication, and perseverance to reach your goals in life, and that nothing is free. In other words, spend a little money, get a better product. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mark. Next item is Jane McGuire.
I'm here today because my children are students in Francis Howell School District, and I'm concerned about the current sex ed program. Currently, what is being taught is abstinence until marriage. The CDC, National Institute of Health, World Health Organization, the American Congress of Obstetricians and Gynecologists all say that abstinence programs have no effect on teen health. The NIH actually goes as far to say that abstinence programs are a concern due to medical inaccuracies, lack of effectiveness, and the withholding and distortion of facts. In fact, neither Thrive, who hosts the program that we use, nor Francis Howell School District have any data that the program we've been using is actually effective. Current research says that teens are sexually active and that comprehensive education delays first sexual experience and decreases the risk of STDs and the likelihood of becoming a teenage parent. Currently, Francis Howell School District is promoting the moral choice to abstain until marriage and is assuming that vital health information is taught at home. For the protection of teens, it needs to be the other way around. Francis Howell School District should be teaching the vital health information, and students should make the choices based on their conversations with their family and their religious beliefs at home. That ensures that Francis Howell School District is meeting the health needs of all of our students. I also have specific concerns about the current program that's being used. Thrive's Best Choice program promotes shame, guilt, gender stereotypes, heteronormative language, and rape culture. It is also, it dismisses our students with any non-hetero gender normative identities. Quotes from Best Choice. These are quotes. Guys use emotions to get physical. Girls use physical to get emotions. Another quote, when it's talking about danger zones and safe zones. Girls, knowing that a guy is sexually aroused at the French kiss stage, it would be disrespectful for you to lead him down this path, knowing that his body has just turned on its green light and all systems are ready to go. This program misrepresents data as fact, or it misrepresents data as fact when it is really merely opinions. Best Choice is a flawed program. Abstinence until marriage does not meet the needs of all Francis House School District teens. I hope that as we move forward in this, that we can meet the needs, that we can see that the needs of all will outweigh the wants of few. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McGuire. Last up is Megan Champion.
Thank you for allowing me time to speak this evening. I am asking the board to consider rejecting the proposal to restructure the reading recovery program in our district and cut 9 reading positions district-wide. As a first grade teacher at Cosley Elementary, I see and experience the benefit of this program on a daily basis. Reading recovery is a highly effective short-term intervention that provides one-on-one reading instruction for the lowest achieving first graders in the Francis Howell School District. The intervention is most effective when it is available to all students who need it and is used as a supplement to good classroom teaching. Nationally, approximately 75% of students who complete the full intervention can meet grade level expectations in reading and writing. In Francis Howell, during the 2015-2016 school year, 161 or 85% of reading recovery students reached grade level expectation in reading and writing. This is the equivalent of 8 first grade classrooms of students. Follow-up studies indicate that most reading recovery students also do well on standardized tests, including the MAP test, and maintain their gains in later years. Reading recovery received the highest marks from the What Works Clearinghouse, a division of the U.S. Department of Education's Institute of Education Sciences. Of the 153 beginning reading programs reviewed, only reading recovery was found to have positive effects across all 4 literacy domains, and only reading recovery received the highest possible rating for general reading achievement. We as educators understand and know the importance of early intervention and the benefits to students who receive these additional interventions in areas of weakness at a young age. By cutting these 9 positions, our district is taking a huge step backwards in our efforts to intervene early with our struggling students, delaying their progress toward reading independence. I'm speaking today not only as a first grade teacher, but also as a parent whose son participated in this program as a first grader. My son Jack struggled to put together those skills necessary for beginning reading in kindergarten. While he was in first grade, he participated in reading recovery taught by reading specialist Denise Glenn at Cosley. Today he is a thriving 4th grader, reading at grade level and scored advanced on the ELA portion of the MAP test as a 3rd grader. I can confidently say this would not have been the case had reading recovery not been an option for Jack as a first grader. Again, thank you for your time this evening, and I ask you to consider a no vote on the proposal to cut 9 reading positions and eliminate the reading recovery program in our district. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. That concludes our patron comments for this evening. FHEA? PSPA? SAA? Board will entertain a motion to approve the patron comments report as submitted.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Walker, second by Mr. Lang. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, by roll call.
Mr. Lang?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Board will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. My understanding is there's an item G, grant application approval you'd like to pull out.
Yes, Mr. Lafata, if we could pull out G out of the consent agenda?
Okay, we'll make that 8A.
Thank you.
The grant application will not be a part of the vote.
So moved. Second.
By roll call?
Mr. Hain?
Aye.
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 Motion carries 7-0. Item 8A. We'll now vote on the grant application approval. Need a motion? Motion to approve the grant application as presented.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none by roll call?
Mr. Lafata?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And reason for abstention?
I sit on the board that awarded the grant.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're ready for our board report. Where you did.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Missouri School Boards Association's board report for the month of December. We thank you for the opportunity to share some news and information during a few minutes of your board meeting. We begin with a look at the upcoming session of the Missouri General Assembly that convenes on January 4th. As a result of the November elections, Republicans maintain supermajority control of both the Missouri House and Senate, and now control the governor's office as well with the election of Eric Greitens. Governor-elect Greitens did not discuss education policy in detail during the campaign, but MSBA's Associate Executive Director for Advocacy, Mike Reed, says there are some indications of what the governor-elect may push as he assumes office.
He believes in parental choice, it appears, as that's what he stated in the past. I believe that he believes in expansion of charter schools and to allow parents the ability to move their children from one district to another at the discretion of the parent. But that's yet to be seen.
Perhaps the most immediate issue facing Governor-elect Greitens will be the possibility of implementing some budget withholdings during the current fiscal year due to the impact of tax cuts and sluggish revenue growth. Estimates for the potential withholdings range between $200 million and $300 million, and some of that money could come from public schools. Meanwhile, leaders of the General Assembly are saying they will support an education reform agenda during the 2017 session, but it's not clear exactly what that agenda might include. MSBA's Mike Reed says having a Republican governor may encourage legislators to pursue issues they may not have advanced previously due to the threat of a veto by the governor.
The leaders of the House feel very strongly that they will be moving some ideas that they have not moved in the past. They believe that they have support in the governor's office where in the past they did not. So I think we'll have more discussion of interesting questions concerning public education. Many people call it reform. I call it a change. You know, the word reform means certain things, but I believe that there's going to be a lot of questions about what those changes should be.
Reed says some of the issues likely to be considered are bills related to student transfers from unaccredited school districts, school choice proposals including vouchers, and additional state tax cuts. He says it's important for school board members to meet with local legislators prior to the beginning of the session to discuss education issues that could impact your local school district. MSBA will keep you informed about legislative developments during the session through our weekly Legislative Voice newsletter, our Capitol Watch video program, our daily updates on Twitter, and through critical issue alerts. And be sure to mark your calendar for the MSBA Legislative Forum scheduled for February 14th in Jefferson City. You can register for that event through the MSBA website. Filing for school board seats up for election in April opens this month. MSBA has a number of free resources available to school board candidates posted on the MSBA website, including a candidate's guide to running for the school board and information on the roles and responsibilities of school boards. Filing for school board seats closes on January 17th. If you were elected to your school board for the first time last April and haven't yet completed your required 16 hours of training, there are only a few opportunities left. You can complete half the training online with the remainder in an interactive classroom setting. If you've been appointed to fill a vacancy this year, you are encouraged to complete the training prior to the April election if you are planning to be a candidate. The training provides a solid foundation for effective governance leadership. Check the MSBA website for the dates and locations of the remaining new board member training opportunities. That's it for this month's edition of the MSBA Board Report. Thanks for allowing us to have some time at your board meeting, and so long from Columbia.
Next item on the agenda is best practices, and that'll be presented by Dr. Greiner.
Good evening, Board. It's my pleasure tonight to introduce Mrs. Betsy Rivas and friends. Come on up. Mrs. Rivas is our K-12 Practical Arts Content Leader and does a fantastic job leading out several departments at both the elementary and secondary level in our district. We are highlighting one of those departments tonight in our Family and Consumer Sciences. And I'm going to turn it over to Betsy to introduce our friends that are here tonight to give us a little more information about our secondary Family and Consumer Science course pathway, as well as our high school culinary arts program.
Dr. Greiner. Thank you for this opportunity for us to share our culinary arts program, which helps prepare students to meet our community's needs with workplace skills. So tonight you're going to hear from 4 students and one of our lead teachers. To begin, we'd like to share a 2-minute video that one of our Francis Howell High School students, Tom Lewis, prepared for us. Vicki, please.
Tell us what you're doing, Michael.
I am making brownies with a caramel topping with pieces of bacon and toffee.
Your cuts look good over there. All right. How are you doing those eggs?
We're still giving the rice a few minutes because it's still got to cook for a little bit.
Okay, how are you doing your eggs?
We're going to scramble it and stir it into the rice.
And what are you making?
We're making fried rice.
Excellent. What's your favorite part about culinary arts?
The advanced knife skills and learning how the food industry works and new cooking techniques.
Okay, so where does it all begin? Well, students can actually begin studying food prep as early as 6th grade in our middle school program. 6th and 7th graders can take FACS on our Explo wheel, and that gives them just a taste, pardon the pun, of food prep at those early grades. And at the 8th grade level, this is where I come in. Vicki, can you help me please with that slide? There we go, thank you. At our 8th grade level, we offer a course called FACS 8A, and that's a semester course that focuses on developing students' knowledge about food prep and nutrition. So whether or not students enroll in FACS in middle school, they can restart their culinary studies at high school. So our friends Emily Ziegler and Sam Dernick from Francis Howell Central are going to talk about their path of culinary studies at the high school level.
Hi, my name is Sam Dernick, and I'm a senior at Howell Central. This is my second year taking a culinary-related class. I started out with the foods and nutrition class, and then now I'm in the culinary arts class. This program is great for students who want to pursue a career in the culinary arts industry because it teaches important skills like cooking and baking, of course, but also nutrition, safe preparation of food, food sanitation, and working with other people. My teacher, Miss Bayer, connected me with an amazing local chef who owns one of the finest restaurants in St. Louis area. And when I went and met with the chef, he offered me a position there, which I gladly accepted, and now I work at the Stone Soup Cottage in Colorado. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Emily Ziegler, and I've loved cooking since I was knee-high to a gingerbread man. Today I'm going to tell you about my journey from my Easy Bake Oven to my culinary Iron Chef Throwdown that I participated in last month. My freshman year, I took Foods and Nutrition 1 and learned the basics of cooking and how to handle myself in the kitchen. While I knew of my passion for cooking before this class, it enhanced my skills and taught me the proper etiquette in the kitchen. During my sophomore year, I took Foods and Nutrition 2. In this class, we learned more advanced cooking skills and techniques. My junior year, I did not take a foods class because I wanted to save the best for last. This year, my senior year, I'm taking Culinary Arts, my favorite class of my high school career. We cook almost every day and create new foods that are works of art that I never thought I could make. Not only have I learned how to clarify butter and make a mirepoix, I have learned to bring people together and show them that I care with the dishes I create. These foods classes have taught me life lessons that cannot be learned in the average classroom, such as how to build healthy habits and create delicious, cost-effective dishes, and how to be independent. I hope that future Spartans are given the same opportunities that I have enjoyed.
Good evening. I'm Dylan Priest from Francis Howell High School, and I'd like to talk about how culinary courses have affected my life. I have learned through my past 4 years of culinary courses about how to properly take care of food, how to properly feed myself, and how to take care of others. Within culinary courses, I have learned about proper teamwork, proper etiquette when at the table, how to properly serve meat and how to properly take care of it so that there are no diseases when I have cooked the food or fed it to anyone else. And it has taken me beyond places I ever thought I could go within school. The culinary program is one of the most important classes that I've ever taken, and it has taught me so many lessons that I will take within my life and teach to my kids, my grandkids, and everyone else I know. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Daniel Mullins. I go to Francis Howell High School, and one of the most important things about the culinary program is the job training that it provides for students. Actually, I was talking about the Stone Soup Cottage. A majority of the people who work there are actually Howell graduates and learn from the culinary arts program. So that's an example of what the program can do for students, pretty high positions. And not only for chefs as we know it, but it can also provide skills for learning to be other parts of the food industry, such as nutritionists, distributors, things like that. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Chris Reed. I'm one of the teachers for Culinary Arts, and I've been teaching this program ever since it started just about 12 years ago, right after I got here. I would like to talk to you about the partnerships that we have with Sodexo. Sodexo is our food service program that we have here at Francis Howell, and we could not have a more effective and honorable partnership with the organization that we have with Sodexo. They have taken care of our culinary program on so many levels. Currently, we have the Iron Chef competition, which not only benefits the students, but also benefits the community in that we, as in our program, our students who participate, get to experience what it's like to work in a professional kitchen, as well as understand that there's that fun component. It's not just like the Iron Chef on TV. There's a little bit more to it than that. Kids try out for the culinary teams probably in early October, end of September. Sodexo supplies us with money in order to practice and establish the dishes that we want to present. Another thing that we really have that is significant with Sodexo is Sodexo provides each school with $5,000 worth of scholarship funds at the end of each year. For all three schools, that's a lot of money, and at least in our school, that is the most that any department gets to award. And the recipients receive this based on not only GPA, but their involvement in a FACS program, as well as their involvement in our FCCLA program, which is our co-curricular support program for FACS. I, on a personal level with Sodexo, have worked very closely with Karen Mann, who is the school liaison. She's the woman who goes around to all of the kitchens and supervises the workers there. The thing that's really nice about working with Karen is that she understands what a FACS program needs, and she understands how it really matches effectively with the classroom in a culinary program. We have been able to have cooking contests in terms of within our own school developing recipes that then they had featured in the cafeterias, whether it was soup or paninis. Sodexo has been very, very willing to do this, and we are very, very grateful for that. Our culinary program, like everyone has said, has produced outstanding young chefs in the St. Louis area and beyond, and we're very appreciative for this program and support.
Thank you once again for this opportunity to share our culinary arts program with you. Do you have any questions for our team tonight?
I don't see any. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. For the next item on the agenda is curriculum first reading. That's creative writing, mythology, intro to business, second grade music, and third grade music. And that'll be on the consent agenda at next meeting. Next action item is the 2018-2019 calendar. We're going to entertain a motion to approve the 2018-2019 school calendar as presented.
So moved.
Is anybody that's on the calendar committee with us tonight? No committee members? Ms. Simpkins, do you have anything to add to the calendar?
No, the 18-19 calendar is being presented tonight for the board's approval. It was reviewed in detail in the November workshop, and no changes have been made.
Okay. There's quite a few questions on the calendar, and you've answered them. Does the board have any other questions or comments? Marquis, do you have any questions on the calendar? You sure? It will not impact you. Okay. Brilliant. Do we have a motion on the floor? And a second? That was Summer and Cope. I wrote it down. By roll call.
Mr. Summer?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Next item on the agenda is purchases over 7,500. And board will entertain a motion to approve purchases over 7,500 as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Mr. Summer.
I'd like to remove item 1 for a separate vote from purchases over 7,500. Do you want that in the form of a motion?
I'm trying to think here now.
Or do you want to redo the original motion?
Why don't we just redo the original motion, and we'll make that one 11-1A and 11A2. So if someone withdraw their motion. And second. Has the motion been removed?
The second needs to be removed.
Ms. Cope, can you remove your?
I'll remove it.
Okay. All right. Mr. Summer. Why don't we do this? Why don't we make, let's separate the item. Let's make purchase over 7,500 minus item 1 as a separate motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? We're voting on everything but item 1.
2 through 7.
2 through 7. By roll call.
Ms. Cope?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Now, this will be 11A2. Mr. Summers is going to make the motion.
Actually, I'm going to abstain, so I'm not going to make the
Okay,
motion.
so what is 11A2? Let me click on it real quick here.
Approve item 1 as presented.
Okay.
Second.
Motion to approve item 1 by Mr. Hain and second by Ms. Walker. Any discussion?
If I could.
Mr. Summer.
I'm not required to abstain, but I'm going to for the perception, simply because of the 40 students that are going. One lives in my household, and of the individuals that we chaperone, one of those also lives in my household, so I'm going to abstain.
By roll call.
Ms. Walker?
Aye.
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 Abstain.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0-1, and that's item 11A2. On to 11B. We're going to entertain a motion to approve the November 2016 financial statements as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Summers, second by Ms. Walker. Any discussion? By roll call?
Ms. Ferguson?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Item 11C, 2015-2016 audit. Board will entertain a motion to approve the audit as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Supple.
Thank you, Mr. LaFata. It's my pleasure this evening to introduce Mr. Rick Gratza, and also with him this evening is Amber Hardesty. Both of these individuals are associated with our audit firm, KEB, and we I want to extend my thanks to both of them and the rest of the team for the tremendous work that they did, helping us through the process as they always do. And I'd also like to recognize Mrs. Cindy Reilman, our Director of Finance. She really shepherds the audit process during the year. A lot of work goes into that, and I appreciate her leadership and guidance in that regard. And for all the other people for whom we had to request information, and they helped us with that. We certainly appreciate it. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Gratza.
Thank you, Mr. Supple, and good evening, and thank you for having us here today to present the results of our audit of Francis Howell School District for the year ended June 30th, 2016. So our audit really consists of three different components. Of course, there's the audit of the financial statements of the district, but there's also the audit of the district's compliance with federal program requirements, and also the district's compliance with certain state laws and regulations. Just as a reminder, as you know, it's management's responsibility to prepare the financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP. Our responsibility as auditors is to express an opinion on the fair presentation of those financial statements. We did perform our audit in accordance with three different sets of standards: generally accepted auditing standards, government auditing standards, and the uniform guidance. As a result of our audit, we issued what's called an unmodified opinion. Now, that's the best of three possible opinions that we can render as auditors. It means that we believe that based on our audit test work, that the financial statements do in fact fairly present in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. I should also mention, just as a reminder, that Francis Howell School District is one of a very few, a handful of school districts that prepares its financial statements in accordance with the more comprehensive accrual basis of accounting in accordance with GAAP, or generally accepted accounting principles, rather than the more simplistic cash basis of accounting. So the district should really be commended for putting forth the extra effort to prepare its financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. As a result of our audit, we did identify one material weakness in internal control, and that the district did need some extra assistance in converting their cash basis financial statements to accrual basis, or generally accepted accounting principles. We did test the district's compliance with certain aspects of laws and regulations that could have a material impact on the financial statements, and as a result, we found no material noncompliance. So we just discussed the results of the audit of the financial statements. Now we're going to discuss the results of our audits of the district's major federal programs. So each year we pick certain federal programs to test compliance with the requirements on those programs. We usually pick those programs using a risk-based assessment. So generally we pick programs that expend more than $750,000, and those programs that haven't been audited in either of the past 2 years. This year we tested the child nutrition cluster, or the food service program, and also the special education cluster. Again, as a result of that audit, we issued an unmodified opinion, the best of three possible opinions that we can render. And what that means in this case is that we believe that the district complied with all the requirements of those two programs that are material. And we identified no material weaknesses in internal control. And the third and final component of our audit was looking at the district's compliance with certain Missouri laws and regulations, specifically budgetary and disbursement procedures, attendance records, and transportation records. We performed that examination in accordance with the attestation standards established by the AICPA, and again, as a result, we issued an unmodified opinion, which means that we do believe that the district complied with Missouri laws and regulations regarding those matters. So in addition to our 2-page audit opinion that accompanies your financial statements, our professional standards promulgated by the AICPA require that we give you, the Board of Education, some additional information about the results of our audit. That information is outlined over the next few slides. First, all of the significant accounting policies that the district uses in preparing the financial statements are described in Note 1. As I previously mentioned, the district does prepare its financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, or otherwise known as GAAP. It's also important to note that there were no new accounting policies that were adopted, so when you're comparing prior year information to current year information, you can know that it's being prepared on a consistent basis of accounting. You're comparing apples to apples. There were no complex or controversial transactions that lacked authoritative guidance or consensus, and all transactions were found to be reported in the proper period. There are some accounting estimates included in the financial statements, as there generally are in all accrual basis financial statements. And as part of our audit, we do evaluate the key factors and assumptions used to develop those estimates to make sure that they're reasonable. We encountered no difficulties in performing our audit. Cindy and her staff were very well prepared, very well organized, so that allowed us to be very effective and efficient during our time here in the field. No disagreements with management regarding any auditing or accounting matters. And we did propose some adjustments to the accounting records to help the district convert from the cash basis of accounting to accrual basis of accounting. All of those adjustments were accepted by management and reflected in the financial statements. We did obtain what we call a management representation letter from management dated December 8th. In that letter, management is certifying that they believe that the financial statements are complete and accurate, and that they provided us all the information that might be useful or impactful to our audit. And lastly, as far as we know, management didn't consult with any other independent accountants to get a second opinion on any complex or controversial accounting or auditing matter. And just in conclusion, I would like to thank Kevin and Cindy for all their cooperation and assistance throughout the audit. It went very smoothly. So, glad to take any questions.
Well, I work in a bank, and we're a very highly regulated industry, and we always have deficiencies when we get audited. And I just wonder if you can come out and audit some of the banks out there, because this is a very clean audit, and it's a tribute to our staff and the quality work that we do. I know when I got involved 15 years ago, we didn't pass the muster test with the state auditor's office, and as a result, we have a process that we go through, and the school district is audited, and it's this is presented to the board every year. And I can say that since I've been on the board, we've had a very clean audit, and it's a tribute to the staff here and Kevin's group and the work that they do. And feel free to shine any light. You do work for the board, but we certainly do appreciate your work and the diligence that you guys offer in your service. So,
thank you.
Is there any other questions, board? You have a motion on the floor? In a second? Yes? Okay. By roll call?
Mr. Lang?
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is policy review, and this is our first reading. This will appear back on the agenda next meeting. There's a number of regulations that are listed. Board, if you have any questions about some of the policies being presented, get those questions into staff. Next item is policy problem issue need PIN, and this is Ms. Hendricks Harris is going to speak on this item.
I could. This does not happen very often, but just as a matter of practice, what we have done in the past is we're required to notify the board when these are submitted, so that is what is occurring tonight. And the board ultimately makes a decision about what policies will be changed. But you can see in the top of the PIN form, it's based on a recommendation. So what we've done in the past is have brought that through the policy committee for further consideration, and then brought that to the board as a recommendation. And so that's the process we intended to follow for these PIN forms brought to you tonight.
scope.
So I took a very close look at the suggested wording as well as our current wording, and I think as a board, we appreciate when the policy group takes a look at information, and they have a lot of experience there. So I would like to pass this to the policy committee, as well as once they make a decision, if there is a change, that we also run it through legal. I do have a couple concerns about the recommendation, but I think it's fair to review the policies that we have.
And that will be in policy for January?
Yes, and we'll review that with legal counsel as well.
Okay. Board will entertain a motion to open negotiations for 2016-17 school year with all employee groups as of December 15th, 2015, 2016 as presented.
So moved.
Senator Walker? Any discussion? Mr. Hain?
Yeah, I know it's been a few years since I've been on the board, but will these negotiations be open to the public so that the public can observe what's going on and see the thing, and will they be recorded?
That is an open meeting, I believe.
Yeah, we typically do negotiations in closed session.
We do. It is personnel, that's correct. It can be an open. It doesn't have to be in closed, but it can be an open. Mr. Schemmer?
And I do know other districts, for example, the Columbia School District does hold their negotiation sessions in open session for the public to view, not to comment, but to be there to observe.
Are there any other local school districts that do it in an open? I mean, Columbia's.
I think we can do the will of the board. I think if we think back on the past several negotiations, there has been a lot of conversation back and forth, and I'm not sure if we would have the same level of conversation if that were an open session. And so if you think of some of the conversations that we have had over the past years, and the types of conversation, the trust that has been built over the course of years in that conversation and with our mediator and all of those things, I'm not sure that would happen in an open session, but it sounds like it's the will of the board. We can certainly consult with legal on that as well.
This is your second time talking on. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, and the reason we're bringing it forward is that, as being communication and open with the community so that everyone knows what's transpiring, and that we have an open dialogue with everybody. That was why I was asking that it be open. I understand if we would go to a personnel item, that we would have to, move that to closed session, just like we do a lot of things in open session, but we do some things in closed. I understand we could do it both ways, but it just seems that to be open with the community and have open dialogue with everybody and full disclosure, it'd be nice to have that be an open session.
I'm just curious how that would work if it came down to more when we divide and conquer.
Well, when the result of the negotiations is the closure document, and that is what's presented to the public. That's part of the public vote. I do believe that when you're working with employee groups, I think you should proceed with each group in a way that is respectful and is open as well. But I tend to agree with Ms. Harris that I'm not sure the perception of the negotiations is the issue. I think the openness of the negotiation process might be hindered if it was done in a open forum. So I believe that we should continue with the same practice that we've had and continue down that road. The results of the negotiations is public, and the public sees exactly what has been negotiated on behalf of our employee groups. Ms. Cope?
So I concur with what Dr. Hendricks Harris said, that we have some great conversation in those meetings. And although I'm very interested in being transparent with the community, that trust level to have the conversations we have to have at that level, I think it's important to have it in closed session and make sure that we thoroughly report the results to our community afterwards.
I'm just curious if MSBA, Missouri School Board Association, if they recommend either way.
We haven't been able to check. I didn't know that this was going to come up tonight, but we certainly can.
Well, tonight we've opened negotiations. We also opened up a question. Why don't we just go ahead and get that answer and then proceed in a way that is favorable to the board? Mr. Summer?
And I think MSBA probably could tell us what other districts, if any closer, do have open negotiations versus closed negotiations.
I think it's also important to ask the organizations that we'll be negotiating with what their preference is.
We can check with our attorney and determine her recommendation as well. I think that caucusing could be a little dicey, but we'll find out. We can check with our attorney and also determine how caucusing would work in an open session.
And I do think one factor that's a little bit different is that because we use an interest-based bargaining model, we invite the board members into those sessions and we have our conversations together. I would imagine that many school districts conduct their negotiations with representatives who've been appointed by the superintendent at the direction of the board to meet with individual groups. Those discussions are conducted without any board members present, and then the information is brought back to the board. So those conversations, I would imagine that if you painted with a very broad brushstroke, most negotiations in school districts across the state of Missouri take place between a representative of the board through administration and the employee group, and those conversations are not a public meeting, just as a note.
Yes, many districts that we spoke with in a roundtable recently don't have board members there at negotiations so that they can then vote on the agreements afterwards. So it's unique to our district to have a full board present in those negotiations as well.
It's unique and beneficial.
It certainly speeds up the process. Okay, we got a motion on the floor in a second. By roll call?
Mr. Hain?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So you're going to get back to us and put that in the board update? Okay. Sure. Next item on the agenda is Vacation Station Preschool tuition for 2017 and 18, and this is information only. Is anybody going to speak on this item, or?
We are entering work session. Do you all want to break down?
Oh, that's right. We did jump in it. I think we can get through this. We'll stay where we're at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. LaFata. I will address this first item. You have the information. I'll just walk briefly through some of those attachments. But one thing that I would share with you is I had an opportunity to discuss this with the Finance and Operations Committee earlier this month. And if I were to bring something back from that committee to the board, I would say that there were three aspects that they focused on. One was the quality of the program and how much they appreciated the quality of our programs, and that we don't just provide a babysitting service, but we incorporate meaningful instructional activities into our vacation station programs, and that our early childhood program, due to the nature of the way that it's structured and the use of certified teachers, we bring a higher level of experience for the students who participate in those early childhood programs. So I think the first aspect would be that they appreciate the quality of the programs that we offer. Secondly, and certainly tied closely to that first, is concern about the affordability of the programs, questions about how do we compare to other programs that are available in the area. And we had some conversation about how the very nature of the program, particularly our preschool program, contributes to the overall cost of the program. I think the takeaway is we're not ready to put the brakes on anything, but know that we are paying attention to affordability and comparability of our programs relative to those that are available generally in the community, even understanding the difference in quality that exists between those programs. And then I think the final point would be inclusivity, and several people spoke to how much they appreciated the fact that we don't exclude students from participating in our programs when they present with special needs, that we try to accommodate those. I noted to the committee that we've seen an increasing number of students with special needs, and that the level of support that we receive from the Developmental Disabilities Resource Board, while very important to our overall program, is not keeping pace with the number of students that we have. So it continues to be a problem, and so both the two outer issues continue to push on the middle issues, the issue of affordability, but I would say that my overall takeaway from the group was very important to maintain the inclusivity of the program, that there are important lessons to be learned even in our early childhood programs of having normally or typically developing students participate with students who may experience some developmental delays. And so I think there was a lot of support for the programs, but those would be my takeaways as to what the Finance and Operations Committee had to say. In the first exhibit, you can see in the shaded in blue the costs that we anticipated for this year, and the revenue that we anticipated for this year, and what our anticipated end of the year would be. I will tell you that Susan Lane, as the administrator for those programs, has delved much deeper into the numbers as she's become more conversant with the programs and familiar with the programs. And you can see that as we look in the orange shaded for fiscal year 18, that it appears that there's a pretty significant difference between our overall outcome. I think what we've done is really fine-tune our projections, and that we think that this is a very realistic approach to what the programs are actually going to cost and the revenue that they will generate. And as you can see in our DDRB section, we anticipate spending this year somewhere around $700,000. It'll probably come in somewhat less than that. And next year some $650,000, and we only receive about $400,000 of support from DDRB for those services. So there's some $250,000 to $300,000 between the two different fiscal years that needs to be borne by the overall program. We did have conversation with Finance and Operations about different methodologies for approaching this, and I think the overall consensus was at this point that finding a way to distribute the costs across all of the participants in the program, as opposed to a surcharge of some type for students who require extra services, would be preferable, at least in the short term. So Exhibit 1 just is a broad overview of what we anticipate the programs to do financially, and as you can see, we do both of the programs exclusive of the component of students who present with special needs. Both of those programs are operating above a break-even basis, and in total, even with the students with disabilities, the programs continue to operate on a break-even basis. Our recommendation for tuition increases for next year range between 1% for our full-day preschool program to 2% for our half-day preschool program and our vacation station program. For convenience of the parents, we try to keep the tuition rates that we charge ending in easily convertible numbers, and so the percentages don't come out to be exactly 2% or exactly 1%, but it makes it much easier for parents to calculate the tuition when it doesn't come out to something like $23.39. It becomes difficult as they're calculating their tuition. But generally speaking, 1% for the full-day program, 2% for our half-day preschool, and for Vacation Station. The next attachment is just showing what the cost is for the various programs that we offer. It's broken down on a by a week basis, how much that is per month and how much it would be on an annual basis. Again, it's helpful for our parents to take those recommendations and translate them into a way that they can understand what they might anticipate throughout the cost of the year. Exhibit 3 is a series of budgets for the preschool program. Not really anything to go through there. It's just something that we have included so that you can, and these same documents are incorporated in our final operating budget when that's approved by the board in June. Exhibit 4 is a history of the enrollment within the programs, both Vacation Station and Preschool. And I will tell you that Mrs. Lane and I took a look even a little bit further back, and it's very interesting to see the tremendous growth in the program over time from when it initially began. I shared with the Finance and Operations Committee some history of the Vacation Station and preschool programs, and to see where we are today, it's really a testament to the great work that we're doing and the important role that these programs play in our school district, that we have such strong support as evidenced by the continued high enrollment numbers in our programs. Exhibit 5 is just a history of the tuition increases. We have tried, as you can see in the recent years, to pass along smaller but more frequent tuition increases as opposed to not having any increase and then having larger increases. So we began, of course, with Vacation Station, then the preschool program, and we made a change in the way that the preschool program was offered. So beginning with 12-13, the comparisons are a little bit different, but you can see that, again, we've tried to pass along in more recent years frequent but somewhat smaller tuition increases. And then the exhibit number 6 are comparisons of other programs that are offered within the community. A caveat here, or a note, would be that the rates that we're proposing, that you can see there, proposed 17-18 fees, are being compared against the current rates that are being charged by those programs, be it community-based programs or school district programs. We don't have their information yet, and this is the only way that we're able to present this information now. But it is consistent. We've always presented it this way. And so you can take a look at that, and the orange shaded cells indicate those programs where the fees are higher than what Francis Howell is proposing, and the blue shaded cells would be the programs where the tuition or fees are less than what Francis Howell is proposing. So Vacation Station on the first page with the community child care providers at the top and school district comparison at the bottom. And then we take a look at our half-day preschool. The shading indicates the same things in both places. And then finally our full-day preschool. So we do try to take a comprehensive look at the program, and I think particularly as you look at our full-day program, you can understand that question about affordability. You see a tremendous more blue shading in that chart than you see in some of the Vacation Station charts. So we understand that, but we also know that the quality of our preschool program exceeds particularly that which is available within the community because of the strong curricular component and the excellent support that we get from the certified teachers who staff that program. So the process would be that we will bring back a recommendation at January's meeting and it will be based around the tuition rate increases that have been proposed. Again, 1% for our half-day preschool program, 2% for the full-day preschool program, and for our vacation station programs. If the board has particular questions, I'd be happy to answer them now.
Board, do you have any questions on this item? Mr. Summer?
Do we know when Fort Zumwalt is anticipating opening the new facility? The 2017-2018 school year?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
No other questions on that item? Thank you, Kevin, for putting that together. And we've come a long way with these programs from a budgetary standpoint, and certainly are supporting themselves now. So. Next item is travel request.
Thank you, Mr. LaFata. In 2005, the board adopted a policy that stipulated that any travel that exceeded $500 would be reported to the Board of Education. Initially, that was a number that typically required travel outside of certainly the St. Louis area, but even Jefferson City or Columbia, those typical destinations for in-state conferences would fall below that $500 level. What we found over time is that cost of registrations, the cost of travel to those locations, many of those in-state conferences now exceed that $500 mark. And I think it's just wise to revisit. It's been almost 12 years now since the adoption of that policy, and to revisit whether that threshold continues to be the appropriate threshold. I was relatively new to the district at the time that the board adopted that policy, and I know that the intent was for the board to understand when people would be traveling out of state and the number of people who might be attending a particular conference. And I do think that we would be able to continue to meet that objective if we would raise the level at which triggers a reporting threshold. I would probably suggest something like $750. That would allow us to cover most of the in-state Columbia, Jeff City, Lake of the Ozarks type meetings without having to report those to the board. The main impact is that it is often difficult for individuals who don't travel frequently to understand the complexity of getting all of the approvals done in a timely way so that we can bring it to the board prior to them making travel plans or actually attending the conferences. And so I think just internally, particularly with some of those, there may even be a number of in the area, Education Plus type conferences that meet on multiple days where the cost is over $500 just for the registration. And people don't do those things very frequently, and it can create confusion within the ranks. So we are asking that the board think about making some change to the reporting threshold. And again, I provided some data there that just shows you the number at 750 and the number above 1,000 to give you an idea, as well as the ones that were below 500, or 500 to 749, 750 to 999, and 1,000 and above. So you can have some idea of the number that might be impacted. And there's a preponderance there in the $500 range, but typically those are Jeff City, Columbia, Lake of the Ozarks, in-state conferences.
Well, I can speak to this item because I'm probably the one that approved the policy a long time ago, because I don't know if Elliot's still with us, but he he did a story about an airplane taking off, going to California, showed a TWA plane going up in the air, and we had 30 administrators heading to California for a conference. So that's kind of why the policy was put in place. But I certainly do believe that, you know, the amounts can be taken a look at. But at the time, that was why we put the policy in place, to avoid a number of people traveling to one place at a large dollar amount. So, so I would be open to some recommendations, Ms. Cope.
So it looks like originally it was maybe approved in 2007, was the update at the 500, is that?
I think that there may be
A small revision back
we didn't
then.
always record the initiation date on our policies. That's become a practice that we're trying to get better at. But I would agree with Mr. LaFata. It was very shortly after I joined the district that this was discussed and implemented.
So personally, I'm comfortable with raising the amount to the recommended $750 level. I think gas prices have gone up. Thank goodness we've seen them come back down a little bit. I know conference fees have gone up. I know the amount of paperwork it takes that we have to create for that travel request, and the later you register for a conference, sometimes there's an additional fee. So I want to make sure that we're not spending money on things that we should be able to readily approve.
Mr. Starr?
Thank you. I know last year, it says here the board approved 86 of the travel requests valued at $500 or more. Do you have any idea how many requests your office receives total, even below the threshold?
We don't receive any below the threshold.
You don't receive any?
No, those are.
That's a building by building or department by department decision?
This did this last time.
Okay, thank you.
I just got some computer problems, but that's okay. We can move on.
So we will bring a recommendation back for the January meeting with a proposal to revise our policy to increase the threshold to $750, and the board will have an opportunity to vote on it at that time. And if the board if there are other thoughts in between, as you think about it, if you want to just share that information with me, I will be happy to speak with individual board members or answer any questions that people may have.
Fair enough. Move on to the next item, and that's the 2017-2018 staffing proposal.
Thank you, Mr. LaFata. I'll wait for the presentation to come up and just introduce it. After several conversations with the board, I'm pleased to present the 17-18 staffing plan. Per the direction of the board, it is a status quo staffing plan, keeping the level of staffing consistent. And with this plan, we do not anticipate a reduction in force at any level. Since providing the presentation on board docs, we have been able to finalize the plan for the reading program restructure that we spoke about a little bit at our last meeting at the elementary level. And additional information has been added that I will share with you today. And the updated version of the presentation has also been made available on board docs. So the process that we follow, I create the plan with our HR director, Mark Delaney, and executive cabinet. We begin as early as October having conversations about what the staffing plan will look like. And this year, many conversations with the board and getting direction as to what that staffing plan should look like as far as the financial picture of the district. We have reviewed and received input from our full cabinet, building administration, all of our principals, the leadership of all of our employee groups, and the plan has also been vetted through our Human Resource Strategic Planning Committee. As we are tightly staffed in this plan, we are asking the board to approve a small amount of contingency. And so as we do this each year, it is difficult to look at last year's staffing plans, proposed numbers, and this year's starting numbers, because we have utilized some of the contingency that the board has approved last year. So requests for the use of contingency are examined very, very closely, especially in light of the small amount of contingency that is being requested in this plan. Since the 2012-2013 school year, we have averaged a request of about 12 FTEs in the certified side of things and about 6.5 FTEs for non-certified. And the request this year is smaller than what is typically requested. So we'll go through the plan in different categories. We'll start with certified, then we'll follow up with our support staffing plan. And we'll look at that by levels. So for our high school, big ideas in the staffing plan that is being presented to you is that it is a status quo staffing plan. The staffing will be reallocated between buildings due to student enrollment. So as we see some increase in some buildings and a decrease in others, we will move that staff just to be sure that our ratios are equal across our high school buildings and that we are meeting the needs of the students in that way. There is a proposal to decrease special education staffing by 2 FTEs, and this staffing will be reallocated at the elementary level. So you'll see it come back as an addition in special education staffing at elementary here shortly. Our middle school ideas, again, status quo staffing. We will reallocate some staffing across buildings due to enrollment, just as we will with the high school level to meet the enrollment needs of our students. We are holding a 1.03 FTE and a 0.17 for gifted. This staffing is already approved by the board. It is being utilized this year, but we did not assign it to a building just yet. We are going to wait to see those enrollment numbers and how they play out, and then we will assign that staffing as we know which building needs it. So this staffing will be utilized before we would move on to using any kind of contingency. And so we'll talk a little bit about the elementary big ideas. In order to address some of our most critical needs and maintain that status quo staffing plan, we were really forced to look at some new ways to reallocate our resources and use them more efficiently. And so we really tried to take a look at some options that would allow us to provide the same supports to students and staff, as we know that past reductions have really taken a toll on both of those categories. So therefore, the plan does propose that we restructure the reading program. And so what this would mean for the district is that we would reduce reading teachers by a 9.0 FTE and reallocate that staffing to meet those other critical district needs. And what that will look like is a shift from the reading recovery model, which is designed for a one-on-one support of students and would allow the district to implement reading interventions designed to support small groups of students, so the early literacy groups. And there is a hybrid of that going on in the district at this time, and the focus will shift to more of the early literacy group. This will allow for more students to receive reading support with less staffing and allow the district to shift the 0.5 reading recovery lead teacher or content lead position to that general reading staff. The 9 FTE that you see as being reallocated will address some of those critical needs that we have throughout the elementary level. So we will increase the English language learner staffing by 2 FTE, and this will help us meet those federal program guidelines that are coming from the Every Child Succeeds Act. We will add staffing to support the emotional social needs of our students by adding 4 FTEs there from the reallocated 9. We hear often from our principals and from our buildings that that is a critical need that we need to look to address, and so this staffing will allow us to do that. And we will also increase our regular education classroom staffing by 2 FTEs, and that is critical as our enrollment in some buildings is increasing, and it will allow us to keep those class sizes smaller. Even though overall we are seeing an increase in class size, this will help us to really address some of those areas that are critical. We will increase counseling staffing by 1 FTE for those buildings that are seeing an increase in enrollment. And then, of course, you'll see the 2 FTEs that will be repurposed at elementary from our high school level staff. So with this plan, I have showed here the chart that will show the proposed elementary class sizes from this proposal. And there next to it, you'll see the MSIP desirable class size and the MSIP maximum class size, just for comparison purposes. The average of the average can be very deceiving because we will have some pockets across the district that will have much higher class sizes and higher than what we're used to in Francis Howell history. So the class sizes will range from an average of 18.7 in a classroom to 26.2. And so we do anticipate kind of a new normal with this level of staffing that we will try to address if we have to with some of the contingency that we're asking for your approval on. And so to speak a little bit to early childhood, regular education again will stay status quo. And we are proposing to add one teacher at special education at one of our early childhood buildings to be determined. This position will be fully funded by the DESE grant and will not have an impact on our salary budget as a district. And so we'll move over to our support staff staffing plan. And this plan proposes that we eliminate a part-time administrative assistant position. It is a .34 FTE. It is located in a building that is having some shifts in staff, and we anticipate that when this position is eliminated, it will be a vacant position. We are reallocating an administrative assistant position to vacation staffing. We have traditionally had a position in our support staff salary budget in FTE, and this position has moved to supporting vacation station more and more over the years. And so we are just reallocating that to the vacation station staffing and budget where it should be. We have 4 positions that when we're offered to employees this year, were offered as one-year only positions, and they are typically to help with class size or a need that we will address differently in the coming years. And so those are one-year only positions, and so those 4 positions will no longer carry over into the 17-18 school year, so we will be able to eliminate those 4 positions. And reallocating all of that staff to support the emotional social needs of our students, and that will allow us to use 1.26 of those FTEs to create those 2 positions. Back to early childhood on the support staff side, regular education, we will, the plan shows an elimination of a vacant facilitator position. That is a 1.0 FTE in the early childhood staffing plan. Eliminating a vacant classroom assistant position, which is a half position. And we are asking the board to approve adding an early childhood special education paraprofessionals. That will be 3 positions. Those positions, again, will be fully funded by the DESE grant. They are for special education and will not have an impact on the district staffing budget, as well as adding to that program an occupational therapist at a 0.63 FTE. Again, fully funded by that DESE grant. In our vacation station program, we are proposing to eliminate a part-time vacation station administrative assistant position. As needs have changed in that program, we feel like this is the right thing to right-size the staffing of that program. We will eliminate a vacation station assistant coordinator, 3 of those positions that are currently vacant. They are not being utilized due to the enrollment in the program. And then we will look to add vacation station facilitator positions, 6 positions throughout the program to support the needs of those students that are enrolled. So overall, the plan will show a 0 FTE change and salary change on our certified side. And overall, the net increase for support staff is a 1.92 FTE increase. And that really is because of those positions that are fully funded by the DESE grant and are covered by the tuition-based program. So overall, we see a 2.48 reduction in the FTE for support staff, and that's approximately about a $17,000 savings in salary. And you'll see the other reduction there comes from early childhood, with the increases just in the early childhood special education and vacation station programs. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Well, this is the nitty gritty. This is like down to the 1s and 2s. The thing I've been struggling with is the reading. reading recovery. Sorry. You know, we've got System 44 at middle school, and we get Read 180. We didn't have System 44 in place until recently because there was a gap in the kids, you know, getting to the next level and really not know how to read or not getting it. They just didn't somehow grasp it, and I hate to pull that program, and I understand that you're trying to restructure it, but we put another intervention in place because we weren't really catching all the kids as they're coming out of elementary. I'm afraid that if we pull reading that reading model out of elementary, that, and I'm not the expert. I'm just saying I had one in reading in System 44, went on to 180. Okay, and some of these supports weren't in place then. So I'm afraid that we pull any kind of reading supports. How much pressure is that going to put on our middle schools if they're coming out of elementary and not getting it? I'm just throwing that out there as a question. And you guys are the experts. I get it, but I have personal experience on the other side.
Well, we understand the concern, and we feel that we can make, right now our current model has reading recovery and early literacy groups, and so we feel that if we, because it is one-to-one, and so it is certainly expensive to run, and we wanted to be able to look at how can we reallocate our resources differently with the current situation that we're in. And so by doing so, we felt we could still meet the needs of our struggling learners by expanding that model to the early literacy groups where we could serve, instead of having the one-on-one, we could serve more students that way, but still meet the needs of our struggling learners.
Ms. Cope?
So I have a couple of questions, so I apologize, but I want to make sure that I understand where we're headed here. I think it's very important, as Mr. LaFata said, that we don't lose our readers at an early age. So I think math and reading are two essential skills in elementary that if we lose them there, we spend so much time trying to catch them up later. So I want to make sure as we look at this that we're doing that fairly. Help me understand the early literacy groups. So we know reading recovery is 1-to-1. What is the size of an early literacy group?
It can range between 3 and 5 students. So right now, a reading teacher would see within their day, they would have 4 reading recovery groups, so 4 sessions of the 1-to-1, and then 4 sessions of early literacy groups. So it could range between 3 and 5 students. It could be 3, it could be 4, it could be 5.
And as a student that's challenged in that area, do they receive both, or do they receive one or the other?
They would receive one or the other. You could have a student who might move from the 20-week intervention of reading recovery and might graduate from that and go back and not be in an intervention, or might move from reading recovery into an early literacy group.
So kind of step them up along their journey. Okay.
And the early literacy groups are still individualized, targeted intervention. So you would have that, instead of being that one-on-one, it's that 3 to 5. But again, it's still individualized and it's targeted for the needs of those students.
And how many students are currently participating in this opportunity for the reading recovery and or the early literacy groups today? Do you know?
Not off the top of my head, but I could probably do the math given the number of teachers.
Okay, I would appreciate that. How do we know, what is the success rate with early literacy groups compared to reading recovery? Is there scientific data? Is there proof that this concept will work as well or close?
My understanding is we don't track our data separately between our students that are, we have data on our reading recovery students, but not separate data on our kids that are just in early literacy groups. So we have our reading data as our elementary schools as a whole, but not data that compares those two groups.
Okay. And if we would make this decision, will we develop a plan that checks to make sure that it's working quickly in case we would need to change direction?
We would certainly monitor the data of all the students that are in the early literacy group full model. if we move that way for 17-18.
I think that's all my questions right now.
I do have one other observation, and this is completely off the cuff, but I've been thinking about this. But I'm trying to compare this to the same argument that you guys provided for us for the need for the emotional support counselors. It addresses a small group of students. You say it certainly is needed. This also addresses a small group of students. In my opinion, it's certainly needed. I just don't understand the argument for one and not the other. And I'm struggling with this because I didn't feel like it was necessary to go that direction, but I do understand. I heard from our elementary teachers that this is a need, but I also see this as a need as well. And I'm struggling with just saying I'm going to forget about this need, but I'm going to address this one. And it's
the board understands. We do believe Reading Recovery has been a great program for us. As was mentioned tonight, it is a research-based program, and the principles are very solid. We have been lucky to be able to maintain this program for as long as we have. Even outside of the budget process, I will tell you that as the Chief Academic Officer, it comes up every year as one of those things that you have asked us to rethink. Can we be more efficient in how we maximize our resources? And so even outside of this budget request, I can tell you that's been brought up every year as something that could we restructure, and that other districts have gone to a different model. And so our thought is that it doesn't have to be an either or. Do we have to give up reading intervention in order to get emotional supports? Honestly, if we would have passed Prop Howell, we would be asking for those emotional supports and not have to be looking to reallocate. But we're not in that. And so, this hasn't been a thought that Nicole had, or Ms. Weitzel has had, just sitting in her office. There has been lots of consultation, lots of research, lots of discussions, many hours of discussion with elementary principals about how to best make a reading model strong in their buildings, and this is where they landed. We believe we have some of the best trained reading teachers around in our reading recovery teachers. We believe that they have a level of expertise. As Lisa mentioned earlier, we anticipate that very few, if any of them, won't be teaching some level of reading when all of the chips fall where they may, although we can't make any promises about that. This will allow us to maintain some of those reading recovery principles and to intervene with more students. And so, again, we believe in that program. We don't want to sit up here and say that it hasn't been a strong program. Just like we believe in Read 180 and System 44. Those are all great programs. They're very expensive programs, all of them are. And so this is one of the things we have to revisit how we do because of the state that we are in as a district. And as Ms. Weitzel has suggested, we will monitor. We've been monitoring reading recovery data every single year at every grade level, 1st through 5th. And that will continue as we move forward.
And to answer your question, Ms. Cope, reading recovery serves 224 students in a given school year.
Do we know approximately how many students will be served by the 2 English language learner instructors, the emotional supports, and the additional teachers? So basically, we're taking those 6 positions out of reading, replacing them, putting them in a different, do we know how many kids are going to be impacted? We got 224 on one side.
I try never to look back there and ask a question, but Dr. Patterson, can you give us a guesstimate on the ELL?
They would serve about 30 students each.
So right now in the 2 schools where we have needs for staff, we have 1 teacher serving over 56, 57 students. And so, and in the other place about the same, Henderson and John Weldon. And so each of the English language learner teachers would serve about 30 students. And that's without any growth, which we do project.
Mr. Lang? This is work session. Feel free to jump in. You don't need
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
We were waiting.
Turn your light on.
We were waiting patiently.
Turn your light on and go.
Well, obviously, this is really touchy because I got a lot of emails from both teachers, parents, and three of my four kids also, participated in this. So it's proven success, and I'm not real comfortable on changing it. And I like to see if we can find other options to keep it in place. I know it's hard. We're robbing Peter to pay Paul, but it's something that's very important. And I may be a little biased, like I said, because three of my four, but there's a lot of kids, and if the reading intervention's not there, then later on it's going to cost more in the long run. It's pretty important, and they had a lot of the same questions I had written down, but I got pages of notes and looking at other options, but it's probably one of the most things that I've got responses on email-wise, not only from staff, but from other parents and throughout the whole district. So.
Okay. Oh, good. I'm just jumping right in here. As I've already spoke to you, and I've spoke to a couple people about it, very uncomfortable with not doing the reading recovery. There's a lot of successes. There's a lot of maybe not successes. I have a student that was not successful in reading recovery, but yet ended up being successful in a different way because we hired a tutor, which helped implement what the reading recovery teacher was trying to do, and it went on. So as a parent or a grandparent of a special needs kid who was told shouldn't have even been in that program, we forged forward, and I asked you a couple other questions about that. But just to reiterate the reading, I am uncomfortable taking that away from students because to me, reading, math and reading are one of the most important things. But if you don't have reading, then how do you do math and how do you go on? And as you get older, it gets worse and worse. And I'm going to share a story, and I normally don't say this, and it's very difficult to even say it. When I was in school, I was not a reader. I had a hearing disability, and I didn't hear syllables, but we didn't catch it because I didn't know I couldn't hear, and neither did anybody else. So I struggled and struggled through school. I am not a good reader now, although I'm better than I was, but I'm not a good speller, never will be. At my age, I have tools. When I was growing up, I used Bomar Brain, and now I use the computer and the spell check and whatever. But that did hold me back in everything I did, in all of my subjects, except for math, which I did excel in, except for word problems, because I had the reading component with it. So reading goes throughout the curriculum. It's in language. It's even in art. It's in everything they do. And if a child, by the time they're in third grade, does not grasp that, will struggle the rest of their life. I'm sorry. That's exactly what's going to happen. And so they're going to try to go to college. They're going to get frustrated. So it's either like pay now or pay later. So when they get frustrated, what happens? They get depressed. They get into trouble. We can change something now in a student for life and make them life learners, make them love reading and whatever. You take a component and you said 200 and something students, and this is just a for instance, and do not kill the messenger here. How many students, and I'm not an advocate of taking away sports either, but how many students, just say in baseball, just hypothetical, is in varsity baseball? How many students per school? It is not a total between all of our high schools of 200 and something. So do you want to educate the kids? Are we sports minded? So these are choices that we have to make. And I'm saying I'm very uncomfortable with the reading thing. There are other choices that I feel we can make, but how do we make a program that is successful, continue to be successful, or how do we catch those students that a small group doesn't work? Like, I shut down when they put me in a reading group. I had a grandson who shut down when you put him in a reading group, but when you did the one-on-one, he finally excelled because he was embarrassed, because he realized he was different. He realized he couldn't read.
Just want to make sure the board understands the structure of the program. So there is one-on-one for first grade students, 4 first grade students per teacher. That is part of their day. And maybe.
So the structure again of that teacher's day, they have both models. So they have the one-on-one for reading recovery, and that's 4 first grade students. And then the other part of the day is the early literacy groups with first and second grade students typically. And the concepts that they focus on in those groups and those are very similar. So focusing on concepts about print, letter identification, letter sounds, using picture clues, word decoding, focusing on sight words, building background knowledge and vocabulary. But how it's done is that size of that group, the 1-to-1 versus 3, 4, or 5 students. The what's done in those groups are very similar between the two. So we're looking at making that shift from the 4 1-to-1 groups to having those be early literacy groups, which would allow that teacher to serve between 12 to 20 more students a day.
But how, as a parent, and this is all my thought process, say, we're going to the other model and it's 4-on-1 and we notice that the student is not thriving. How is it, or where is it that they can come to us and get any more suggestions on what else to help that student? And will we have intervention quick enough that they're not going to lose any ground, meaning they will continue to grow in their reading? Or will at the end of the year go, oh, well, he was progress towards whatever, but is not really progressing? How do we combat that between the 1-on-1 and the 4 and 5 with each teacher? I'm just apprehensive at this point. I get the concept, I get where you're going with it, and I know change is hard, and I understand all that, but reading is such a big component of a child's life, for life.
I understand that as a concern, and I also don't want to imply that the one-on-one at first grade isn't research-based, because it is. But right now, we also have students who aren't successful in reading recovery.
Exactly, and I get that,
So there are other interventions. There is special education. There are teachers out there every day, including our reading recovery teachers, who are having to think of what those plans are going to be for those individual students who aren't successful in that program.
So I'll play devil's advocate for a minute. We've asked this organization, this team, to come up with more efficient ways to work through our budget. We have a budget concern. We have to maximize our resources. And looking at an opportunity where we're maximizing our resources, keeping our staff employed, increasing the number of students seen by fewer teachers, as long as we have a plan in place that an individual child will be helped if the smaller literacy group is not working for them. And if it doesn't come there, it's coming somewhere else. And again, I went on record saying I believe reading and math is the 2 most important skills in elementary school. But if we have an opportunity to be more efficient, we need to consider it.
Okay. I mean, I've always said we need to be able to do the same thing differently, and that's where you're going to be looking at different ways to do things. Mary, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot. You were sitting one seat over a short time ago, and you implemented this program, and you believed in this program. You probably still believe in this program if I had to put you on the spot. If the money was there, we wouldn't be changing this program, correct?
Correct.
So I'm going to go back to what I said back in November. If we look at our budget that we have proposed, our 5-year budget, and we go back to what Mr. Supple has projected to us, and we take the time to evaluate these changes, if we want to put a pilot program in, you said we have a pilot program in that we're looking at these 3 to 5 kid groups, that's great. I think we need to evaluate and look at all these options for us. But, I think everybody up here has said the same thing. These are kids' lives. And if this kid doesn't learn how to read, that could affect them the rest of their lives. And I don't want that on my head. I don't think any of us do. Nobody in this room wants a kid not to be able to read. And I guess all I'm saying is we're making decisions over a week or month period that should be made over a much longer period. We can have time to do more research on these things. What I'm asking for is, let's go back, let's review what we were talking about. We can do exactly what we're doing this year, next year, and we could still end our budget with a 16% surplus, which is what the board policy says to what we need to fund this district, or that is the minimum amount that we feel comfortable with. We could end 17-18 with that budget in reserve. We wouldn't be making knee-jerk reactions, making decisions in days or weeks. We could make those decisions over weeks or months. And this time next year, we could have these decisions with additional data, additional information, and make informed decisions and not be affecting kids adversely. So what I'm asking is that we go back and review that. We've had, talks about, whether or not sports are important or not. I'm a big advocate of the engagement, the attachment that sports are. I've always been that way. I understand. I'm just saying, we've cut 27% of our budget, sports budget, or our extracurricular budget over the last 3 years. And now we're moving forward to make, in that proposal several months ago that we didn't vote on, we just kind of recommended, additional cuts. Those are important. We can teach kids, we can do things, but it's the heart and soul of the school a lot of these times. And a lot of these kids, you see, 3.6, 3.8, it was just like, I couldn't, well, we can't comment on comments that were made, so I won't go there. But I just believe that we need to sit down, we need to review these things over a period of an extended period of time and make informed decisions that aren't going to adversely affect students. We have the ability to do that. We have the budget in place to do that. And that's what I'm asking. We all take a step back and make decisions that are informed decisions and not make knee-jerk reactions that could adversely affect kids.
Well, I'm gonna kind of attempt to wrap this up here and just say this. We asked for a staffing plan, okay, status quo, and the administration has worked very hard to put that before us. It sounds to me that the board's not in favor of cutting the reading recovery program at this time. So my recommendation at this point would be to, bring back a proposal that would. I'm gonna go backwards just a minute, okay? We're hiring additional emotional support counselors because we feel there's a need, okay? It's a very small amount of students that we're proposing to help. We understand there's a need out there. I think a need of supporting kids in reading is more important. Now, not saying that I want to go backwards on that proposal, but I would put reading above that. Now, I don't know how many we proposed in our current budget for additional needs. Was it 4 or 5? 4 certified and 2 non-certified. So 4 and 2, right?
It is 4 FTE on the certified side that would have been reallocated for the social emotional needs.
Okay. And we're doing this based on really no data, just hey, there's a need out there. We understand there's a need in reading. We already know that, because otherwise we wouldn't have additional supports in place at the middle school. And I'm afraid to find out what would happen if we gave less supports in reading such an important program. Now, I don't know where we go from here, but I think that the board's already moved forward on the amount. I think what was the option that we chose? Status quo option two. The board's already moved forward on that, so we need to give these guys the respect to be able to present to us that proposal. But what I'm hearing tonight is that the reading program is not something the board's interested in cutting.
What is the salary impact?
The 9 positions are just reallocated through the certified staff. And so we use an average salary when we look at that, so there would be no salary change.
So if, let me rephrase. So if we did the reallocated positions and if we kept the reading positions, what salary impact is that?
So 9 positions is about $792,000.
Thank you.
And that's salary and benefits.
I understand the desire to move on from this topic, and we will do as we are directed, but I also just feel like I need to plead the case one more time. And so you did direct us for status quo staffing, and you asked us to restructure some things. We've had many meetings. We've consulted with the elementary principals for many, many hours. If anybody is going to be protective of elementary reading students and their ability to read, it's going to be the elementary principals. They are held very accountable in their report cards and their evaluations for that student data. And they believe that we can run as good of a reading program as we have by reallocating the staff and using the expertise we have in the buildings. I understand that that doesn't sound plausible, but I think the board is making assumptions that that isn't a possibility, that we're cutting the reading program or that the next round of data is not going to be as good as what we've seen in the past. And in our conversations, or at least the ones that I've heard of, I will tell you that that is not the elementary principal's assumption in their conversation, nor has it been Ms. Weitzel's assumption in moving forward. So I don't want the board to jump to the assumption that if we reallocate these positions that there is not going to be the reading achievement that we have had in the past. We haven't shared all the reading recovery data from our district, but we certainly could do that, especially the longitudinal data through 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade with the board if the board would like. So if the board's direction is that reading recovery is off the table and that is a program that you would like to continue to maintain, we will come back with a different staffing recommendation and different positions to reallocate next board meeting. To the question about how many students the emotional supports will see, I think that will vary depending on the program that is developed. But I don't want us to lose sight that while those staff might just support a certain number of students, the behavior of the students is affecting an entire building or an entire classroom. We are clearing classrooms. We have staff ending up in urgent care. We have to address the emotional concerns of the students in our building. It is a priority need. I originally, when I brought my original recommendations, there were many more positions than what we're asking the staff for. Or what we're asking the board for at this point. It is a need. And if you were to tell me 5 years ago that we would be sitting here having to make decisions between whether we were maintaining the reading recovery program or meeting the emotional needs in a Francis Howell School District, I would tell you that wouldn't be happening. But here we are.
And I think my concern is if we push back and say reading recovery isn't what we want to cut, the next thing you bring is going to be the same answer. And we're going to get the same, a different group of community members or teachers and staff will come to protect whatever that is. We have to figure out a way to be more efficient.
So if we maintain the reading teachers, 9 positions there, and we include the support staff, the emotional needs, and ELL staff that's being proposed, really the options I see us having is, as a board, are we willing to absorb that additional $800,000 worth of cost to make that work? Or the other option would be to cut additional classroom teachers, which is then going to continue, unfortunately, increase our class sizes much closer to the maximum. So my question is, if we would go forward with the proposal presented by administration, what other systems or fallbacks would be available or in place for those students that aren't succeeding with the early literature groups that we currently have? Is there any other in-house things that we currently use that would benefit those students?
I don't necessarily agree that we would have to cut additional certified staff to make up that $800,000. There's other things that we can take a look at from the board's perspective to make up that difference. I don't think that that's a given, that 800,000 would be coming out of staff.
We'd have to make other cuts, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't want the assumption to be that the board would want to cut some other staff. What I'm saying is, if we were to keep that, what other things that can we take a look at to make up that difference? Not necessarily certified staff. And I don't know what I know that we're going to talk about this in a little bit, possible strategies to take a look at efficiencies or other avenues to cut our costs, maybe transportation, things, walking districts, things like that, that would impact that number, because that's kind of an unknown right now. So I don't,
I would still like an answer to Mr. Summers' question.
I think part of that is even right now when you're not finding success with kids, then teachers, rework what they're doing and try to make other decisions and put programs and put things in place that are going to be successful. So I can't say specifically what that would look like, but certainly within the early literacy group, looking at what they are doing with the students to help them be successful in making any modifications depending on the needs of that student. So I don't have a specific example of what that might look like, but I think you make those adjustments along the way as you do with any student who you're not finding success with.
So this may be somewhat insensitive. It sounds like we have a small number of very disruptive students. Is that what we have that's clearing out classrooms and sending staff to urgent care? Is it a very small number? Or do we have 100 kids district-wide so it's a small number? So do we impact 224 kids in a reading program, or do we take that small number of children and come up with some sort of a differentiated program so that they're no longer a threat to the staff or the class? I just hate to see us when we're looking at $800,000 worth of staffing and we're talking, a couple hundred kids. And yeah, there's an impact based on, the emotional disturbance of these children for everybody around. I don't want my kids exposed to that either. However, is there an option to send them somewhere else? To a different class? Is there a BD class or...
And we've been looking at all kinds of supports, and it's not easy to move a kid out of a building to an ED classroom. That is a long process and requires a lot of different requirements to make that kind of a move. Oftentimes we have students who are temporarily in crisis, and we don't necessarily want to move them to a program in a few buildings away filled with students who also have emotional concerns. The models that we are looking at would first keep students in their building, however, not provide them some support right there on site, where they would not be disruptive to that classroom. We need both kinds of programs though, and that's the conversations that are having of the positions we are bringing forward. What would that look like given just that amount? Because we have 10 elementaries and we also have concerns at middle schools, and so how do we do both of those things given the number of positions that we have? So how do we have support on site, kind of a mini crisis room or a de-escalation room, however, whatever you want to call it, and also have that other level of classroom, more of that across our district for our students who are more long-term involved, and that crisis room is not going to meet their needs.
And both of those would require additional staff to accomplish that. It's not something that we can necessarily do within our existing current staff that we have.
And they both require lots of staff, so you're not talking about a 1 teacher to a 24 ratio at that point.
So I think the board needs to consider not asking the cabinet to come back with yet another plan, because we've been challenged coming up with direction for them to begin with, and I think they've done an amazing job with all of our varied opinions trying to come up with a staffing plan. So I don't want the answer of come back with another plan. I think we need to consider either we accept the plan that they've given us based on how they deciphered our conversation in the past, or we accept that we don't want to lose the reading recovery program and we accept the $800,000 additional salary. That's my recommendation, one of those two.
So if we say that we are interested in allowing the additional salaries so that we don't leave our readers behind or our emotionally challenged students, you know, that we can have a positive impact for them as well. When we look at the budget, when we look at the overall budget, will we be able to make that up somewhere else? I mean, I'm just thinking the amount of kids impacted.
There are several areas that we are going to propose studying. However, that is a significant amount of money.
What do we spend on transportation for sports? 200 and... You know, I'm just thinking bigger picture, because we need all of these programs.
And I would say, Mrs. Walker, I understand exactly what you're suggesting. And Mrs. Cope suggested earlier that we're at the point in the life cycle of this school district that every choice is a difficult choice. We did have a patron comment this evening that spoke specifically about the importance of our sports programs. And if we're to come back later with a budget proposal that is eliminating transportation for all activities, you will be besieged with letters from students and parents and staff members about the importance of transportation for students who participate in our activities. Every choice that we're making now is a difficult choice, and there will be a constituency who is deeply affected, and we're going to have to make some very difficult decisions. I think, just echoing what Dr. Hendricks-Harris said, we really took a look at how best to allocate limited resources and still provide support for reading. And I continue to hear, and perhaps I'm misunderstanding, but I continue to hear a perception from the board that there won't be any reading program, and that's not the case. There will be reading support for our students in a mixture of one-on-one and small group, and our elementary principals believe that this is going to be an effective program, and it allows us to do some of the other things that we think are very important. And you know, for the students in crisis, it's not just a small. It is. There probably are some students who are repeat offenders, but what we're seeing in our buildings is that students who are not in crisis one day are experiencing an emotional crisis for whatever reason of what's going on in their home. And it's a different set of students, so it's a constantly changing mix. So I would imagine that people are going to touch many, many different students throughout the course of the year. So yes, we can bring back a proposal that would take a look at making changes in other aspects of the budget, but we're not at a place where it's not going to create a hue and cry from some component of the community about don't touch my program.
We got to stop looking at them as my programs and look at all of them as the kids' programs and the community programs. I think that's, you know, something that we have to do. And I think that when we do talk about the budget cuts, we need to look at what's going to impact the property values as well. Reading, test scores, that's going to impact. Having a bus to take the kids to a baseball game, not going to impact our property values. So I think as we talk about these things moving forward, we just need to be very conscientious of even bigger picture outside of the buildings.
And I'm going to chime in on the, hate to say the bus thing, but as I had proposed before, is consolidating different things. But when I find out, you know, and there's always an excuse why they have to do it that way, but say there's a varsity and a JV game, they're within hours of each other in the same thing, and we provide transportation, which we can provide transportation. Why is it that we have to provide transportation double, where they have to take the varsity and then they have to take the JV? What happened to sitting there and cheering your varsity team on or looking forward to being a varsity player? Yeah, it's going to take a little longer. Sometimes the parents will say, well, I don't want my kid sitting there that long, so I'll transport them there. But we're doing double duty. That's a luxury to me. That's a luxury. I'm sorry, when I was in school, your game was, JV was here and JV was there. You took the bus there for the JV game, and you sat and you waited until the varsity was done. That's just the way it was. And all of a sudden we got to, well, we have to transport to and from here and to and from there for both of them. And I kind of like said, you know, we need to start checking those things. Some of those, I call them luxuries, that they don't have to sit there, but there can be other arrangements as far as parents and different things.
Ms. Ferguson?
Yes.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but let's try and stick to the topic that we're talking about right now.
I'm just looking for other ways to come up with that, to leave it that way.
As the chair, I just want to make sure we're focusing on the staffing plan, and let's talk about that. If we're not wanting to go in that direction, then the board needs to give the administration some direction as to what that would look like. I understand the importance, and your opinion matters, but I want to kind of bring us back in here and talk about the staffing plan that we have before us. We asked these guys to provide it for us, their recommendation, and if we don't agree with that recommendation, we have the opportunity to vote against it at the next meeting. Is that correct? It's being brought forward?
Correct. We'll listen to the direction of the board this evening and make any modifications to the plan that you would ask us to do, and then we will bring the plan back in January for your vote.
Okay. So I'm not trying to cut you off on that, because that's an important item that we're going to get to, but let's try and stick to that. Mr. Summers?
So if I can follow up and kind of follow up on what Mr. Supple said, really we're in the position now as a Board of Education, as a school district, no matter what we decide to talk about, whether it's extracurricular activities, transportation, cutting staff, it's going to be a revolving door on who agrees and who doesn't agree, depending upon where your staffing yourself is or what grade level you happen to have children in. And I commend the administration on making this tough recommendation on cutting these positions. And I think none of us would disagree that the reading recovery model and the early literacy groups that we have currently are needed, and they're successful, and it's a very difficult decision. But I think we might be able to live with the proposal that administration is bringing forward if we knew definitively with a detailed plan what happens to our elementary kids that aren't succeeding, whether they're in the reading recovery model or the early literacy group. And what can we do internally with no additional dollars involved to find those children that aren't being successful and make them successful? And it's going to be a creative thinking process, but I think that might be the solution, the best solution to go down to get us through this staffing proposal without starting over from scratch. I'd like to see what can we do to help these students succeed that aren't being successful based on whatever model they might currently be in.
And one of the things that we brought up at one of our other meetings was the fact that we have a number of personnel and they're certified personnel that are in various positions other than student contact positions. They are curriculum positions or release positions or other positions. And have we thoroughly explored the possibility of putting those people back in the classroom where they'll have some contact with students, even if it be on a part-time basis to alleviate or fix some of these holes. I mean, I'm just gonna keep saying this forever. I know nobody's gonna listen, but we're making decisions too quickly, and we're not really thinking these through. But that's another thing that we had talked about, brought forward. I don't see that. Have we really thought about that, or is that something that could possibly help some of these things?
Can you clarify what you mean by decisions quickly? Because we've got to put a staffing model forward so that we can start the process of issuing contracts. I'm confused as to what you're meaning by that.
I'll go back to what I said earlier, is we have the ability, we have the funds in place that we could roll the same plan out for next year. Our 16-17 and our 17-18, we could add the things in that administration told us they needed, those $2.6 million worth of items, and we could do those things, keep the same programs in place, and still end the year with the reserves necessary that meet our board norms.
But we've already gone past that, Mike. The board already moved forward on staffing plan 2, which was not to do that. So we're beyond that. So we still have to move forward with the plan that the board approved.
So then.
So we're beyond that decision. We can't go back on that.
But I guess what I'm saying is cutting the literacy specialist and the extracurricular cuts and all these other things. So none of those things are on the table, but now we're talking about the literacy.
We didn't make any cuts. We approved status quo hiring at this point. They put it together. They put a plan before us. There's some people uncomfortable with the positions that are being cut, but they're not uncomfortable with the plan that we approved already as a board. And that was staffing, that was proposal 2, correct? Okay, so option 2 is what we agreed to as a board. They're bringing us our best recommendation.
Was there a vote on that? I don't think we voted on it, did we? Okay.
I think the board gave a direction.
It was a general direction.
Right.
So Mr. Hayne, to answer your question about those non-teaching positions, so and the reason we didn't have content leaders in our staffing plan for making that reduction is that we certainly feel that there is some work that we need those folks in those positions. We have a variety of curricular changes that are being made as a result of the revised Missouri Learning Standards, and they lead that work. We've had a plethora of curriculum that are being approved by the board that they will also lead that PD out, and they also support teachers in those content areas in their PLCs. And so we felt that they were a crucial need to support the district and the achievement of the district. The literacy coaches you had just mentioned as well. We do have 9.5 literacy coaches. There is one in every elementary building, and then one in the building has a half-time coach. 4 of those are funded by Title II funds. So if we were to eliminate on the Title II end, you're not going to get that full. You're not going to be able to reallocate those Title II funded positions elsewhere, because that is for the coaching purpose. And we felt that by balancing the reading reduction and moving to early literacy groups, by maintaining the coaches, we were still going to provide support for teachers for all students as they implement Tier 1 instruction in ELA. And so that was the rationale for not bringing both of those groups forward in that staffing plan.
I don't know if this will help the board, but one of the things that we have added to the January agenda is fiscal planning. And at that time, we will be asking the board for which of the non-staffing reductions the board is serious about and would like for us to further study. So we've had some preliminary conversations about things like extracurriculars, transportation, 4-day work week, and at that point, the administration will be requesting a vote on which of those things the board is comfortable with further study, at least. And so we don't want to go down the road of doing additional work, getting committee members together, potentially causing a stir in the community if that is not a direction the board is on board with, so to speak. And so we've added that item to January in order to vet those additional non-staffing reduction studies, not necessarily recommendations, but studying those things to the January meeting. So I don't know if that helps the board some. I'm not sure that any of those will. You could get $900,000 out of some of those additional cuts, but they are going to be more dramatic than what we originally proposed. So if you think of the list that we brought you and some of those estimates, you're going to have to do something much more than what is on that list.
So let's say we go ahead and say, move forward, we'll vote on the staffing plan as it's been presented next month. Is there a possibility for flexibility? Let's say we get 3 months into the school year next year and this is just not working. We've got students really struggling and we have parents coming and saying there's not enough reading support. Can we, at that time, reevaluate if need be and put some of that back into place if we need to? I mean, is that even possible?
Could through the revised budget process.
And through the contingency staffing that we asked for, and as you know, we have come to the board in the past and asked for additional contingency when we have felt like we had critical needs and we had utilized the contingency staffing that the board had approved. That would be a point of discussion for the board as far as the increase of salary cost at that time.
So then I guess my attitude would be that we ought to have them move forward with the staffing plan, that they're the experts. They're the ones that know what our kids need.
That's the guidance I would like to provide.
As would I, as long as we come up with that detailed backup plan. Absolutely.
And I think part of that backup plan could involve, we had talked the previous month about one of the add backs was the tutoring fund. So how might those tutoring funds look in an elementary building to support just that?
Ms. Ferguson?
Yeah. Like you said, provided there's checks and balances and different things. And the other question that I wanted to ask, if, because I don't know, and I think I've posed it to you about, because a lot of times a parent will come and say, what, where can I go? How can I get some extra help in that? Is there a way our district can put together a plan that's not going to cost the district, that is a fee-based, so that a parent can go somewhere and say, I can pay for this tutoring? And because somebody had said to me, but that only means that the people that can afford it can do it. But you got to start somewhere. I just wanted to see if that's a possibility or if that's not, or what is your thought process on something like that?
I'll bail her out since she hasn't been here for forever, but we do have some tutoring lists available in our schools, and so we can provide that to families that are willing to pay that. And want to remind the board that in addition to the staffing, we also are proposing to reinstate some of the tutoring funds back to our building. I'm not going to cure everything, but there will be some additional tutoring funds provided to the elementaries that would be used for reading and math.
Okay.
So that staffing proposal is being brought back for a vote next meeting? Chad, go ahead. I'm sorry.
It seems like a majority would like to move forward with it, and but I'm going to continue to look at this, and I guess if still not happy with it, can vote against it.
Any other comments on staffing proposal? So this will be brought forward for approval January meeting?
Correct.
Okay. In the efforts of time, is there opportunity to talk about strategic planning, strategic updates and strategic planning at a future meeting?
So Mr. LaFata, the HR strategic updates is a agenda item from our summer retreat that we ran out of time from at our summer retreat. The board had asked us to review our hiring practices and what went into making a selection for a candidate that applied in Francis Howell. And so that is a presentation that we brought tonight to catch up on the retreat from the summer. We put it here as part of staffing, as it kind of connected, but pleasure of the board, we can do what you
And
Do you need a motion to table that for now and bring it back in a future work session?
if we're going to table D, let's table E as well, so, yeah.
Well, E's the strategic planning that's supposed to start in very shortly, so I don't know that we can.
Well,
So that-
we've started portions of it already, and there was another meeting scheduled for tomorrow.
So we could table D. There's no urgency for us on that part. That was more of a board desire. So if the board desires, we could table D. We might be interested in having a quick preliminary conversation to make sure the board is okay with us moving forward with some things on strategic planning on E. But we'll make it brief.
I'm good with that.
Motion to table D.
Is there a second?
Second.
By roll call?
Ms. Ferguson?
Aye.
Aye.
So we'll put strategic updates on the January meeting. Okay. Mr. Dykeman.
The district's current strategic plan ran from 2011 to 2016, and we're due for a new 5-year strategic plan. We talked about it initially back at the board retreat in June, you'll remember, and at that time we discussed several different possibilities, including an option for outsourcing of the facilitation of strategic planning or doing it ourselves, and there are advantages and disadvantages to both, and those are outlined in the documents. If we facilitate internally, the strategic planning timeline document outlines a plan that continues tomorrow with chairpersons of the 7 individual strategic planning committees and concludes in September with the final version of the strategic plan would be presented to the Board of Education. There is a substantial community engagement piece. Mr. Haynes said at our last meeting that the district should go to our community and ask them what they want, and our plan has 4 different community meetings and a survey piece as well that would do just that.
In addition to that, we will be taking full advantage of all of our strategic planning groups. So those of you that are involved in a strategic planning group, we will be heavily involved in the strategic planning process, and much information will be vetted through them in the coming months.
During their monthly meetings.
As you're talking about the 4 community meetings, I assume that you're talking about if we do it internally.
Yes. There is an option. There's a document there. Some of those costs were shared with you back in June. There are many different options. One includes, I know Mrs. Walker talked about a complete and thorough process of auditing the district, and you can spend almost as much money as you'd like to in that process. But that certainly, the first step in any comprehensive strategic plan is an assessment of your current reality, and that would certainly accomplish that.
We did find one organization that provided something similar to what you were talking about, and they were a very expensive organization, but they did do what they called an organizational audit, which seems to be more of a term of business, and they're providing some services to special school district.
Okay, and I guess my question would be, I'd be interested in seeing a presentation from them and also some data on what is it that they typically save a district, because it's definitely very, very expensive. But my guess is that we would find efficiencies that we would make up that money and then save additional money down the line in the future. I also think it would go a long ways to showing the community that we've had an outside group come in and really look at how efficient are we.
It's going to cut both ways, and so yes, what I would really like would be for every 10 years to have an outside organization come in and do our strategic plan. And
I would tell you, as the person responsible for public relations of the district, I would be worried about the perception of our community if after the failure of Proposition Howell, we spent $200,000 plus to facilitate the plan.
It's a catch-22, and so while the best thing for the organization might be to have an outside look, somebody, an organization that is objective and can look at things and see things that because of unrecognized bias for people that work in the organization we don't see. There are some pros to looking at outsourcing, As Matt said, the external perception of outsourcing such a thing at this time is going to be very difficult. One thing that was mentioned to me a week ago is could that be one of the areas that you could look at an alternative funding source? But we haven't had much of an opportunity to have a conversation about that as an idea. So this is another thing that I think we have put our own deadline upon ourselves with an attempt to get a strategic plan to you by next school year. And if this is something that the board would like to slow down the process and have some presentations from some external groups to get some ideas, or would like for us to present, we certainly have looked at some groups such as Cambridge, who also offers a model where they don't necessarily have to come in and do your plan, but they will train cabinet members in a structure. That's a possibility. We could do anything the board would want at this point. We are prepared to move forward and deliver you a plan in August if that's your desire.
So my opinion is I think a strategic plan is very important. It sets the course for our district for several years. I am comfortable not having a plan in place to make sure we get the best plan in place for us. So my opinion is we slow down, we evaluate some options thoroughly, that we can pick the best that fits our district to take us forward for the planning of it, whether we purchase outside or stay inside. I'm concerned about the perception as well. But I would like to spend some time. So there's a saying, right? The more prep time you do, the better result you're going to get and the better process you're going to have. So personally, I'd like to slow down and prepare better.
We could certainly do a continuation of our current plan as we have and other districts have done in the past.
We could. We could
Or
take the
6
next
months
few
or a
months
year,
just
yeah.
to review processes.
I think everybody's so tired now that they're not sure where to go with it. I would be comfortable with leaving the current strategic plan in place to give us some time to at least evaluate some of these options. I know the $200,000 structural audit or organizational audit is very costly, but my guess is when they come in and they present to us, they're going to be able to show us how they've saved districts millions. So.
And that is certainly on the high end of the cost option. We do have some other very capable organizations that are more in the $20,000 to $40,000 range.
My personal thought is that I don't know that we really need to pay that for the strategic planning process. I heard you've done a really good job of that in a different district, and the community engagement piece and all of that I've heard went very, very well. But I am interested in looking at the more comprehensive and maybe not so much for the strategic planning.
I understand.
And I would thank you, and I would say while I have facilitated in previous districts, as with many other things, nothing is quite as thorough and as deep as the things we do in Francis Howell. Yes.
That's the quote of the board meeting.
I agree with that. We shouldn't rush into any decisions. We should slow down and make sure we make the best plan. However, I think that, I've looked at our budget, I've looked at the plan, and without an additional influx of funds in the foreseeable future, and we're looking sooner rather than later, this district will cease to educate children to the level that we would like our kids to be educated to. So I think that it's vitally important that we have a strategic plan in place, that we can engage the community, and that we have something that we can roll out to the community saying, this is our vision, this is our strategic plan, and this is why we need these funds to do these things. If we go out without a strategic plan, I think that it kind of goes hand in hand. I think we need to engage the community. I think we need to have a strategic plan in place, and then we roll out and we do the other thing. I just, just throwing it out there.
So how about this? We just keep kicking the can down the road. However, we could put this whole conversation in another work session in January. Minimally, it will postpone the plan by a month. So it might not be delivered in September, it might be delivered in October, but we could have a more thorough conversation about the will of the board moving forward. Yes?
That sounds great.
So I think that's a good idea. It adds a little bit of time to gather a little bit more information, but it respects Mr. Haynes' wishes of making sure that we do tie that with any future initiatives that we have. So
what sort of additional information might the board be looking for?
Do you just need time for it to talk this through a little bit more? Do you want us to?
Like us to try and bring in some presenters to...
So we've talked about the possibility of external organizations coming in and doing the strategic planning. We've talked about the option of doing it internally. And since I've been on the board, we've done it both ways. Is there the opportunity, or is there somebody that could come in and help instruct and lead the administration, training sessions, if you will, on the best approach to a new strategic plan? Is that opportunity available?
MSBA.
Yes, and some of that it's going to cost as well. And
Well, wouldn't MSBA, wouldn't their services be available since we're members?
did we talk to MSBA originally?
I don't believe so.
I think
Our fees are awful high there. Look at that resource.
we looked at this a long time ago, and I will double check. I think maybe we asked MSBA and they didn't offer the service, but we will double check.
I think where I'm at is I can't evaluate if I want it internal or external if I don't understand what is included in the pricing for the external.
Okay.
It's just a dollar amount and a timeline, so to make that decision.
There are proposals attached. If you scroll down to the...
Might be a couple blank pages in between.
Is the one we have right now, we
60 pages.
we updated internally. We just added on to it, but it was done by an outside group, I believe Lindenwood University.
That was the one before this one, so our last one was done internally, the one before that was done by Lindenwood.
Right, but
We're at the tenure.
we're in the same format as the one that was done previously. We use the same format. I think we're just looking for a higher level of expertise, or at least some advocacy on we can all sit up here and say profound statements, but we're just looking for some help. That's what it comes down to, is like what are some things that school districts need to look out to in the future, and what is the requirement, and what is the cost going to be to fund that? And as Mr. Haynes says, you got to engage the community in both processes to get them to buy into our program. And I think that once you get all that coming together, I think that there's an opportunity to move forward with the plan. But the plan has to mold with the community. And I think that the more experts we get in, not the 7 of us, not just the 5 of you, I think the more people we bring into the process, the better. Don't know if any of the local universities or colleges have experts that would help us. Maybe we look at some resources out there that we haven't looked at that don't cost any money.
If we did it internally, we certainly would be reaching out to some of our business partners.
I mean, there's some pretty smart people out there probably help us move forward.
Could we get some more information about the full structural audit? I'd like to look at what do they typically save when they're paid that amount of money.
But if we bring you some more information about all of the external, and possibly we could have them do a very brief Ignites kind of 5-minute overview of their services at a workshop in January. I don't know if that's possible.
Sounds fine to
See what we
me.
can do for January?
That sounds great.
Yeah, if you want to kick it out to April, I'm good with that
Or
too.
we could just move to adjourn. I mean, we got 100.
Might be a challenge to get them here.
We'll see what we can do for January.
All right, superintendent's comments.
Yes, I just have a few bullets, I promise. For the last several meetings, we've had to have some very difficult discussions, and we'll need to make some difficult decisions moving forward. I appreciate the board's leadership. As one of our patrons pointed out this week, it's much more difficult to be a leader in challenging times, and I want to thank all 7 of you for stepping up and doing your jobs and being as patient as you have been. Many families in our communities have been generously supported by our schools, district office, and student organizations throughout the holiday season. It would be difficult to keep track of the total gifts or total families, but Francis Hall continues to be an extremely generous group that gives back to its community. According to recent data, there are only about 1,000 students in the United States every year who achieve perfection on the ACT. I'm proud to report that 2 of our students, David Yang from Francis Hall High School and Kaylee Ammon from Francis Hall Central, are part of that 0.6% of almost 2 million students who received a perfect 36 on the ACT. Board candidate filing opened December 13th for the April 15th election. We want to wish everyone well on that election. I want to wish the board and all of our staff great holidays and a great Christmas break. I hope everyone has time to cherish their families and their friends.
And I wish the superintendent safe travels to Chicago tonight. And I wish everybody a Merry Christmas. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We need to review some future meetings.
Oh, wait a minute. We need to talk about future meetings. Good grief. I think we have one add to the one meeting.
A couple things.
Okay.
So we have to get that McPherson-Jacobson closed session meeting in. I have a recommendation. Maybe we try to do that January 19th at our usual closed session time from 5 to 7. Okay, so not our usual time. We move closed session to be 5 to 7 on the 19th, meet with McPherson-Jacobson during that time, and hold any closed session items, which there have only been a few lately, to after open session. That would avoid the board from having to add an additional night to meet with you.
And it's my understanding that we will not have all 7 board members there that night.
This is true.
Do you have to have all 7 there for the guarantee?
No, a quorum.
Okay.
Okay.
So is the board agreeable to that? I will invite McPherson-Jacobson for 5 to 7 closed session.
And how long do they need us for?
They need us for 2 hours.
For 2 hours. That's fine.
Would it be possible to FaceTime in for that as well? Okay. I may do that for the January meeting.
Make that happen. Another addition to your calendars is a St. Charles City joint meeting, joint city council joint meeting. They are requesting your presence on February 15th. The City Council will be meeting with school boards from Orchard Farms, St. Charles, and Francis Howell. We don't have a time just yet.
What is our meeting with them?
January 25th.
January 25th, okay.
So there's a planning meeting prior to that, so we don't know the exact agenda items at this point. And that is the date that they have set aside for that meeting.
So Dr. Greiner, I want to call out that this meeting's set for February 15th. So for the CAP meeting, most of the school districts are going to be at the February 15th meeting. Thank you.
And then the last addition that I would have would be that we have added financial on January 19th to clarify with the board direction on those additional cuts and what will be studied. So there were things added to that financial.
We also agreed this evening to add a revision to our policies regarding board approval of travel, so that'll be on the January 19th meeting. And we're going to add the work session item for the HR strategic update that we didn't get to cover this evening.
Anything else? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. 15B. Didn't we talk about that? Oh, no.
We talked about January.
Is there any additions to the 16th meeting? No? Okay. It may be after the January meeting. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
By roll call.
Mr. Lang?
Aye.
Aye.